Hello gorgeosities, how are you all? I do hope you are well. I really hope you are well. I'm quite a lot better. I'm still not 100%, but yeah, a week of antibiotics and steroids, and yeah, starting to be on the mend, thank goodness. And last night, woohoo, I got a full 4 hours sleep in one chunk. Yay! So I think a combination of 4 hours sleep, but a slap, I almost look human again. Yeah, and only 2 pillows last night, so much more comfy than trying to sleep sitting upright. Thank you all for your get well wishes. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think definitely on the mend, but definitely not myself still. I still haven't ventured out yet. I've got a parcel that needs to go to the post office, so I think I'm probably going to ask my neighbour if she'll take it. But hopefully, you know, as the next few days go on, I'll get to the stage where I feel like, yeah, go out again. I mean, go out as into shops, post office, not go out. Certainly not partying. Anyway, so yeah, that's where that is at. So I thought today, as I'd mentioned in my in my bed video, thank you so much for keeping me company. I had no idea that was going to be such a long video, but hey, we're just hanging out in the bed together, aren't we? And I know quite a few folks said they enjoyed it because it felt really cozy. It was. I'm still in cozy mode, as in hoodie, and you can't see it, but pyjama bottoms and thick woolly socks and slippers. And I'm annoyed about my slippers because they've broken, but more of that in another video. I'm going to go out on the hunt. Right, let's get on with today. So I'm going to talk about decluttering today. I'm sorry, just to say right from the outset, there may still be a bit of coughing. I'm going to apologise now in advance of that for any coughing, sniffing, sneezing that goes on, rather than apologising every time, because it gets a bit disruptive, doesn't it? So in advance, apologies for any coughing. The coughing is good though, it's getting all the gunk out. Sorry, don't want to be too graphic. So yeah, I'm going to talk about decluttering. It's my little sort of decluttering manifesto, if you like. So let's approach this as if I'm talking to my bunch of student nurses. Learning outcomes. So I'm going to actually do, I think this is going to end up as 3 videos. I'm going to try and keep them shorter. So today I'm going to talk about approaching your declutter, getting organised to do it. Then in the next one, I'm going to talk about using one room as an example of how to approach it, or how you might approach it. And by the way, this is by no means an exhaustive list of how to go about decluttering. The point is there are many different, there are many different names for decluttering, many different styles. You know, there's the 90-90-90, there's the Marie Kondo, there's the clock method. Essentially, these are just names for doing the same thing, which is decluttering. And ultimately, the only way to do it, never mind what technique you use, the only way to do it is to commit to doing it and get stuck in. But that's what I'm going to try and hopefully help with this first video, about just how to just get on and do it. So we'll do that, and then, as I said, the next video, using a room as an example, plus, really importantly, how to maintain the declutter. So putting new systems in place, getting organised so you can keep on top of it. And then the third video I'm going to do completely separately is going to be all about Swedish death cleaning, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. And that does involve some decluttering, but it's about so much more than just that. And I really love this concept of Swedish death cleaning. So I think it deserves its own space in a separate video. But in the meantime, before I do that, I've made a note. I was going to talk about this in the Swedish death cleaning video, but I thought, excuse me, some of you may want to have a look at a series of programs that have been on TV in advance of that, because I think it will give you a great introduction to the concept. It was a really beautiful series. It's called, very simply, have you got a pen and paper to hand? You might want a pen and paper to hand today. So the programme is called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. And in the UK, it was all filmed in America, but with Swedish people doing the death cleaning. In the UK, it's available on a channel called U and W. U for ungulate and W for Wellington. Okay, ungulate and Wellington. U and W. So if you go online and just, if you put into your search bar U and W UK TV, I think, it will bring up the sort of the portal for all of this free to view TV stuff. Now, it is free to view, but there are adverts and you can't skip them. That's okay. Listen, if we're getting free entertainment, let them get their money from their ad revenue. I think there's about 8 episodes in total, and I would highly recommend watching at least 2 or 3, because the individuals that they do the clean for are so different. It will give you a really broad idea of what on earth this Swedish death cleaning stuff is all about. Right. And to introduce all of this, you know, why declutter? Excuse me. Why declutter? Why get organised, etc., etc. Hopefully, by having less clutter, by once and for all getting on top of the mess that your home is in, and even if it might just be one room, it might be one drawer, but getting rid of that clutter, getting rid of that mess and getting organised and getting systemised, hopefully what that does for you, it lightens you. I mean, literally physically feeling lighter, but more than anything, mentally, lighten your mental load. So you don't waste time looking for things. You don't waste money buying duplicates of things because you can't find the other thing. It's sort of streamlining your home life so that runs more efficiently and smoothly. So you're free to get on with other stuff, fun stuff. Let's do fun stuff. Let's not waste minutes of every day looking for stuff and ploughing through piles of things to get one thing and then losing it and do it. If for no other reason, get decluttered and organised to make your life easier and to make your time more efficient so that you've got more time for fun stuff. Right, okay, so let's start. I've got my clipboard and notes. So it might, I will try to do things in order, but we might go off a little bit and then come back to things. But okay, let's just start. The first thing you need to do is make a plan. And to make a plan, the best thing to do is to have a goal in mind. So what is your goal? What do you want to achieve from this declutter? And it might be something as simple as saying, I want more counter space in the kitchen. It could be as simple as that. I need to declutter my kitchen, my home, whatever, because I want to have more counter space free in the kitchen so that when I want to get on with cooking, I can just get on with it with all that lovely free space. Sorry, excuse me. It's because my mouth is so dry. And that comes back to just what I was saying a second ago about streamlining your home life so that when you're decluttered and you're organised, you can get on with things like cooking a beautiful meal for yourself, because you're not first of all having to clear a load of crap out of the way in the kitchen in order to cook. So that might be your goal, as simple as that. You might have a guest room, a spare room in your home that has become an absolute, hands up, come on, hands up everybody. You've got a spare room and it's absolutely full to the brim with junk. And even if it's not full to the brim with junk, it may have become the sort of place it's a dumping ground. It's where you hang your laundry. It's boxes that you haven't bothered to flatten or get out in the recycling yet. It's just full of clobber. So your goal may be, I want to get that room sorted so that it can function as a guest room. Or you might say, I want to get that room cleared so that I can use it as a home office or a home crafts creative room. I want that room free so that I can set it up for sewing, for example, so I can have my sewing machine out, whatever it is. So yeah, work out what is your goal. It might be the whole house, but we're going to take bite-sized pieces. But what is your goal? And from there we can start to make a plan. When you know what your goal is, then you can start to decide, okay, how am I going to tackle this? Am I going to tackle it room by room? That might feel like a logical one for you to do, is to say, I'm going to start with the guest room, that spare room, that's where I'm going to start. But eventually I'm going to tackle the main bedroom, I'm going to tackle the living room, I'm going to tackle the kitchen. So you might decide that for you, going room by room will be the best way for you to do it. You might even, within a room, you might quarter the room. So we're kind of going to the clock method a bit. But you might say, I'm literally going to do the northeast corner of the room. So it might be, I'm looking at my room now, I might say, I'm going to tackle the corner of the room where my settee is, my DVD screen and player, and I've got some boxes there where I keep bits and pieces. And another section for another day would be this corner, so I'd be tackling my books and my bureau. So you can designate a whole room or quarters, parts of a room, even something as small as I'm going to tackle one drawer, the top drawer. Marie Kondo, KonMari, and I like this and I completely agree with her on this one. She talks about doing things by category of object rather than by room. So for example, you might say that the first thing to tackle will be all your clothes. The reason I like that method rather than necessarily say room by room is because you may have clothes in your bedroom. You may have a ton of clothes in that spare room. Remember that junk room where things get lobbed? You might have clothes hanging over the banisters. You might have them in the laundry room. They still haven't been put away. You could actually end up with clothes in 3 or 4, 5 different rooms of the house. How can you go through, if you're just looking at the clothes in the wardrobe in the bedroom, how can you decide if things are duplicates, if you've got too much of one thing, if you're only looking at a portion of what you've got? So yeah, if it's clothes, I would suggest you go to every part of the house where there are clothes. You might have clothes in the loft. You might have clothes in bins in the garage. Get all the clothes together and bring them all to one central point, probably the bedroom, and then you can sort them. So yeah, make a plan. It might be room by room, it might be item by item. If it's items, you could say clothes, paperwork, etc., etc. And then you need to think about allocating time. So this might be a little bit difficult. And you might start one weekend and realise, actually, this is going to take a whole lot more time than I thought. So yeah, be realistic about it. If it's every single room of your home that's in chaos, you might have to realistically say to yourself, every weekend, for example, every Sunday, I am going to do 5 hours. I've made my list of all my rooms or all of my categories. Make a list. Yay for lists. I've got all these rooms written down. I think realistically the living room alone is going to take me 4 weekend sessions, if I just do 5 hours every Sunday. Have your calendar and know that Sunday is your day. 5 hours, you're going to commit to it no matter what else comes along to tempt you that looks like more fun. Commit and get this done once and for all. So yeah, be realistic. And it might be that I think having that specific time slot, so let's go with that idea of 5 hours on a Sunday, and you might say, I'm going to do this from 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. and then whatever stage I'm at, I'm going to stop, and at 2 p.m, I'm going to make lunch and get on with the rest of my Sunday. But know that you're going to come back to it the following Sunday. You might, after that first session, think, actually, this needs more time. I think I'm going to have to give it a whole weekend, for example. Also, it depends. Part of your goal, for example, just going back to the goal, it might be the goal is to stage your home for selling. This process that I've been through, in which case you might not have all the time in the world to do it. And you might have to say to yourself, you know what, I've got a week of annual leave from work starting on Monday. So actually starting this Saturday before and going right through to the following Sunday. So you give yourself 9 days. For those 9 days, this is all I'm doing, is doing my declutter, getting this house sorted and straight once and for all so that I can get it on the market. If you're not time pressured, you might think there's no way I can do 9 days of decluttering. It will do my head in. You might say to yourself, it's going to be one weekend day, but it's going to be every do that Sunday session every Sunday until it's all done. Be strict with yourself and be honest with yourself and be ruthless with yourself. It might be that you say, I can't do 5 hours every Sunday because, at the weekends I care for my elderly parents, or I've got my grandkids, or I've got my kids, whatever it is. In that case, you might say to yourself, I'm going to do half an hour every day. Most of us can find half an hour every day. Turn the telly off, do half an hour of blitzing. Have your list, room by room or category by category, half an hour. One drawer in half an hour. Okay, and then whilst you're in that planning phase, you need to work out your exit plan. In other words, where's all your junk going to go? Sorry, excuse me. This is going to be quite a sippy session, sorry. Where is all that junk going to go? So before you actually start in on doing your declutter, you might want to have a little think, do a bit of research. For example, locally, where can you recycle certain items? Electricals can be a bit tricky. So it's almost guaranteed that you're going to come across some cables, some wires, some bits and bobs from gadgets which have long since disappeared. Where are you going to recycle it? So do a little bit of research first of all. Things like electronics, printers, mobiles, all of those gadgety electronics things. Know where you're going to be able to take them afterwards. And then just when you're getting ready to do your declutter, we all know this one by now, don't we? We're going to have separate boxes. You're going to have your keep pile, a recycle pile, so that's for stuff that's not of a decent enough quality to sell secondhand, like at a charity shop, thrift shop. Know where you're going to recycle your stuff. Keep box, recycle box, a donate box, and then there are 2 more which I'll come to in a second. Just a word on the donate box if you're struggling to let things go. I think one of the things to bear in mind, and I think it can be really helpful, is to think to yourself, just think about someone who's got nothing. I think that's the easiest thing to do. Think about someone out there who has nothing. And if you've got 17 pairs of jeans and you're thinking, oh, I just don't know, I just don't think I can part with a pair, just think what it would mean to that person with nothing if they can get hold of a pair of your jeans, either through a charity shop, so it's really cheap, or as we have in my area, we have a big donation hub where anyone who, I think you have to show that you're on benefits, I'm not sure, I think you do, but anyone can go along and, ask for what they need, and if it's clothing, and it's free to them. So yeah, if you're struggling to let something go, just think of someone who's got nothing and how amazing it would be for them to have some of your excess, just to ease their life a little bit. So the two other boxes, so we've got our keep, donate, recycle. There are two other boxes you might have. But again, we've got to be honest with ourselves with this one. I think have a maybe box. As you're going through, you may be hitting sentimental stuff. And that's why I'm going to talk more about that with the Swedish death cleaning, because that's really useful for the sentimental stuff. But as you're going through your bits and pieces, you might hit on some sentimental stuff, old school reports, photos, whatever it is. Tempting as it is to stop what you're doing and start going through your photo albums and reminiscing, that's lovely. Don't. You've got work to do. Come on, chop, chop. With things like that, actually, that's not a good example for the maybe. But, with photographs, you're probably going to keep them all. Put them back on the shelf. It may be that actually you want to thin them out a bit, and if you've got packets, the paper packets, if you've got packets and packets and packets of photos, that could be a whole separate session of just tackling photographs, winnowing them out a bit, and then the ones that you really love, get them into a beautiful album that's, it's near to hand, it's on the shelf, you can take it down from time to time. If you've got friends visiting, get it down. Oh, do you remember our university days? And you have a look through, or, family. Oh, do you remember that Christmas? But I think photos is a whole session all on its own. So the maybe box is more about, let's go back to clothing, and let's say you've managed, out of your 17 pairs of jeans, you've managed to say, okay, well, 7 pairs of jeans can definitely go to the donate pile. That's great. There's 3 or 4 more pairs of jeans you could get rid of, but you're really struggling. Rather than stop the flow of your declutter, put those into the maybe box. And at the end of that session, your maybe box, you're going to put it away, but you are going to revisit it in 2 months' time. Don't leave it longer. Don't do it before. Give it a couple of months. Put it on your calendar. Put it on your declutter schedule. So any maybe box, revisit it in 2 months' time. And it might be that when you revisit it, you still can't quite decide. That's when I would say put it away if you've got the space. Put it away for 6 months. And if you haven't looked at it in 6 months, donate it. I mean, I'd be all for donating it way before the 6 months. But give yourself that little, slight get out of the maybe box. Don't use it too much though. Only if you're really, really struggling with a decision. Pop it into the maybe box and then revisit it. But the idea with this whole process is that you don't end up with boxes being stored and stashed. You don't end up with boxes in the loft, in the garage, anywhere else. You get it done once and for all and get it out now, ideally. And then the 5th box, which I think to be really wary of, is the to sell box. you know, obviously it's a great idea if you've got some good clobber. I mean, I've just done it with my records, selling my records, which has been an outstanding job for ages. And I've got the sort of the vintage clothing, which there is a plan for it. I'm waiting till I've moved. I haven't got the headspace at the moment to be tackling anything else until I move. Obviously, there are some things which you're going to think, well, this has got value, surely I should sell it. Great, yeah, and there are myriad platforms on which to sell. But again, I think it's one of those things to say to yourself, give yourself a time limit on it, and say, look, this has got to be done and dealt with and sold and out of my home within the next 6 months. And if it's still lingering after 6 months, it's a donation. It's not for selling. The issue with selling at the moment, it seems, maybe it's because there are so many platforms. In the summer, I mentioned that eBay was suddenly not really working for me. It's always worked in the past, and suddenly it just seemed to be not doing great for me. Lots of you talked about Vinted and how great Vinted is. There's only one way to find out, and that's to try them, isn't it? I do know recently that eBay have removed all their selling fees, and I think that's a sign of the times that there are so many other platforms. So yeah, by all means, have a go at selling your stuff, but have realistic expectations that maybe this thing that you think has, you know, it's worth 20 quid might only sell for 2 quid. So bear in mind that if you do have a box when you're decluttering that's marked to sell, that's going to take time at some point. So you're going to need to factor that time in somewhere, and you may not get much for it anyway. So you might be in that frame of mind to say, do you know what? In which case, I'm just going to get rid of it now. Just donate it. Let someone else have it. It's tough though, isn't it, when it's, you know, something you've bought and you've spent quite a lot of money on it, to then think, oh, I'm just chucking it out. But we're in a process. We want to get to that end goal. Excuse me. Don't be tempted before you've done your declutter. Don't be tempted to buy more storage, whether it's a storage unit. Please, please, please don't have a storage unit. It's a waste of money. Get rid of your stuff. What I mean by storage is things like, you know, boxes, crates, the underbed, all those different ways we store things. Don't be tempted to buy any of that until you've done your declutter, because until you've done your declutter and you're systemizing and getting organized again, you won't know what you need. And it's quite likely that you'll buy stuff that you then hopefully you won't actually need. Okay, rattling through. Goodness, this is supposed to be a quickie. Right, you might want to consider organising some help. Especially, yeah, I was going to say, especially if you're a very sentimental person and you think you might get stuck a lot. But even if you're not a sentimental person in particular, if you think, you know, you might not have the discipline to do it, get help from someone that you really trust. It might be your sister. I mean, I'd trust my sister if I was doing it. I think she would trust me to do it with her. It might be one of your besties. Oh, sorry. Now, they might... I'm not suggesting that you rope in help every single Sunday for the next year. That might be a bit too much to ask. But just something like, if you're going to do a clothes session, invite a friend to help you. Ply them with wine and cake or whatever it takes. Just having that second person around who you need to pick the right person though. That person is going to say, come on, chop, chop, on to the next item, next item, next item. No, chuck it, chuck it, chuck it. That's the kind of person you want on your side who will keep you motivated during the day. But also if it is emotional stuff, if it's someone who's known you all your life, like your sister, they will know the importance of that item, the history of the item, and they may be able to help you to finally say, you know what, it's time for it to go. Emotional stuff, actually thinking about things like inherited items, and that's why we need to do our Swedish death cleaning. We'll come on to that. But I think this is where a lot of people really struggle, when you've inherited stuff and you might not have even asked for it. Actually, specifically when you haven't asked for it. There's so much, I think there's so much guilt attached to sentimental items. We feel guilty if we get rid of it. If I get rid of this item, if I throw this item away, it's like I'm throwing away my grandma. Now, we know in our heads, in our intellectual minds, we know that that's nonsense. We know that we're not throwing our grandma away. We know that she's not in the object. But in our hearts, that is how it feels. So I think having an awareness of that before you start, and just to keep reminding yourself that, your granny, she's in here. She's in your memories, she's in your heart. You don't need objects to remind you of her, for example. But keeping one or two things is lovely, especially if they're things which are out and in use every day. So, for example, for me, I've got my grandparents' bureau, my granddad's bureau, and then that's on the top, that little box. My grandma used to keep all her envelopes and stamps and bits in the kitchen. I've got my Kilner jars, which were auntie teapots. But that's pretty much it, because, say with Auntie Teapot, a lot of her stuff, it's not to my taste, it's superfluous to my requirements. What's the point of having it in my home when I don't need it and someone else can use it? What's the point, like say with my records, what's the point of having my records in a cupboard unplayed for 25 years? Why am I keeping stuff in a cupboard? So with that sentimental stuff, the inherited stuff, maybe think about a few items that you can have that you will actually use, and honour your relative by using them rather than just having them in a cupboard, never to be looked at for years and years and years. And maybe the only time you ever look at those items is when you're trying to find more space in a cupboard to put your own items. I think that's, how bananas, how bonkers for us all if we can't put anything on our wardrobe because the wardrobe is full of our grandma's clothes, because we feel guilty about throwing them away or, donating them. I don't mean throwing them away, but, donating them. How mad that I can't use my wardrobe for my clothes because they're full of grandma's clothes. You see what I mean? I'm not going to dwell on that one too long, because that does come up quite a bit that will be a central part of Swedish death cleaning. But yeah, please don't feel guilty. What have I written here? Yeah, and it keeps coming back to that point about someone else out there could really, really, really do with that item, whether it's an item of clothing or whether it's a table and chairs, whatever it is. When it's got a sentiment attached, I do get it. I do understand how difficult it is. But remember, you need to be getting on with your life in your home, and someone else out there may need that item. So get rid of the guilt. And if you don't like it, and if it's in the way, if it's taking up space, both physically in your home and here, get rid of it. And actually, likewise, unwanted gifts. How many of us have got unwanted gifts in our homes? How many of us have kept hold of a really, really ugly jumper because it was a gift and we feel guilty about getting rid of it? Why? Why are we keeping things that we don't like? That's kind of like the whole Marie Kondo thing, KonMari. And she talks about only keeping things if they spark joy. I think that's taking it too far. I mean, I have things which you know, they don't particularly spark joy, but I need them, so I keep them. But yeah, unwanted gifts. I remember one Christmas I was given, it was my then boyfriend's mother gave it to me. She just didn't know me, obviously, but it was an ornament. I mean, I barely do ornaments, but it was a sort of a shoe, a high-heeled shoe, and it was covered in like glitter and crystals and sparkles, and it was bright pink. And it's like, what on earth is that? It's probably one of the most hideous things I've ever seen. Anyway, she was visiting us that Christmas, so I had it out. I said, thank you very much. As soon as she'd gone back to her home, went to a charity shop, I had no feelings of guilt about that. Kind of her to buy me a gift, thank you, and I thanked her. But an utterly inappropriate gift, so don't feel guilty about getting rid of unwanted gifts. Now, I need to wrap up. Let's start wrapping up for this part. The big thing is, don't worry about getting this all done in one go. For some of you, this may be a lifetime and a whole home that's verging on hoarding. You are not going to get it done in one go. Just no way. Don't put yourself under that kind of pressure. Like I said, it could take you a year. It could take you a year of doing a little bit every Sunday. Let's not try and, achieve perfection straight away in one weekend. It's going to be impossible for a lot of you. Don't put yourself under that kind of pressure. Instead, try to firstly commit to it and stick at it. And take time after each session to celebrate whatever achievement you have made, however small that achievement might be. And like I said, it might literally be one drawer, or in the kitchen it might be one cupboard. So long as you're doing it and committing to it, you will get there eventually, and we'll come on to the eventually in the next part about what to do when you have got there. But yeah, it's almost certainly for any of us, you are not going to get it all done in one weekend. So don't try to. Instead, focus on what time can you commit to this? Is it half an hour after work? So for instance, I just made a little list here of 30-minute blitzes, which could help. Some of you, your house may not be as crazy a mess as I'm making out. It's not that bad. But a half-hour blitz, if you have just half an hour after work, before you settle in for the night watching telly or reading or crafting, whatever it is you do, half an hour, you could do one drawer easily in half an hour. Half an hour, you could probably do a bookcase. Just go on, hoik them off, get rid of them. Half an hour. The bathroom cabinet, or even actually the whole bathroom, you could probably do in half an hour. What are your duplicates? Can you decant? Have you got 4 of the same shampoo? Decant them all into one bottle if there's a bit used from all of them. So yeah, think about having half-hour blitzes on things. A drawer here, a drawer there, a bookcase. And that's going to help you to build confidence as well. That, yeah, I can do this. I can actually, maybe, finally start to get on top of this and achieve something. But yeah, certainly don't beat yourself up for not getting it done in one go. And I think also if you after your first session, you will have a better idea of how realistic your time scale is for things. If you try to achieve everything in one day, you will exhaust yourself. Because there is a lot of emotion involved as well, but you'll exhaust yourself, and you might put yourself off doing any more of it ever again. It's too much. Don't put yourself off doing it. Just keep nibbling away at it, either room by room, category by category, drawer by drawer. So long as you're doing it, you will get there eventually. All right, lovely. So I think I'm going to say that's it for today's little kind of like an introduction, really, isn't it? So quickly, pray seeing what we've talked about. What is your goal? Identify your goal, what you want to achieve by doing your declutter, so that you can start to make a plan. Give yourself a schedule. You might have a little calendar as well as the schedule, and commit to it. Give yourself, this time is the time when I do a bit of care on my home. Whatever else comes up, I'm going to ignore it. This is what I'm committing to. Work out your exit plan. Where is all your stuff going to go that you don't want anymore? You might have to do a bit of research, especially when it comes to the things like electronics. Be realistic about in future in terms of selling stuff. Are you really going to spend time cleaning, pressing, whatever, photographing, uploading? If you really are going to do that, again, give yourself the time limit on that. Your exit plan is really important, because you don't want to then be in a home where you've got stacks and stacks of bin bags and boxes and stuff to get rid of that you never get around to getting rid of. It's like, I've done the job, I've decluttered because everything is now in black bin liners. No, you haven't done the job until they're out of the house. Exit plan. Ask for help if you need it. A bestie, a sister, whatever. Don't feel guilt about getting rid of inherited items. Don't feel guilt about getting rid of unwanted gifts. This is your life, it's your home. It's got to work for you. And if something's blocking you from just living free and smoothly in your own home, get rid of it. Really importantly, don't worry about getting it all done in one go. Bite-sized pieces, whatever you can manage, but commit to it and just keep on attacking it, and you'll get it done eventually. All right, lovelies, that's it for this part. In the next part, I'm going to talk about tackling one room in particular. I'm going to use the kitchen as an example, because we pretty much all have a kitchen, don't we? And then talk about sort of maintaining it going forward, not just the kitchen, the whole home. All right, lovelies, I'll see you for the next one really soon. I'm going to go off and have a really big cough now. Until the next one, cheerio, lovelies.